Well, this month, the National Trust for Historic Preservation is launching a campaign to collect stories about historic Route 66. The campaign is an invitation to the community, travelers, historians, and enthusiasts to share stories and photos about Route 66. The goal of the campaign is to tell the full story of the route through places that contribute to its unique history and identity. If you would like to submit a story, go to newschannel10.com.